Welcome back to the Health, Weight Loss and Wellness Show. And today we have a very special guest with us, Leanne Kabat. And Leanne is an international speaker and author of the 5 Seasons of Connection collection. Now that's a tongue twister for me. Her 5 season frees us from the harsh winter storms of our family life, love life, and business life, anchoring us in joy. I love that. Happiness and sunny summer days. It's beautiful. Her first book serves parents. Her second book supports entrepreneurs with mindset mastery. And her third book guides couples back to love in their relationship. What a beautiful trilogy there. Leanne developed the 5 Seasons framework as a result of a medical diagnosis in 2006 that gave her 5 years to live, challenging her to truly live a life that she loved. I feel like we're really going to learn a lot from you today. 15 years later, she's happily raising 3 teens and excited to visit her 50th country when she's safe to do so. Thank you so much for being here. And what an amazing story. And I want to really just dive in, but firstly, I want to say, welcome to the show. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And this story is quite incredible. And I think it's going to give a lot of people a lot of hope. So we really want to dive into what you experienced and around the 5 seasons that you developed. So over to you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. So it started in 2006 and we had just moved to a new country. My husband was transferred for his job. He was traveling out of state for business and I was home with my 2 toddlers and I was 5 months pregnant. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I wanted to go to the bathroom and I just collapsed on the floor. And I lay frozen for about 5 hours. Oh. I was on the baby, I was on my belly, and I could not move. Oh. And I went through everything that you can imagine. I begged the universe. I cried. I pleaded. I got angry. I started negotiating with God and the universe and anybody who would listen just to get me off the floor. Just around 7 a.m., everything started to spin. I started to burn. Pink neon flashes went through my eyes, but I could move. So I got up, I cleaned myself, I woke up my toddlers, grabbed some snacks, I put them in the van, and I typed in hospital because we had just moved to this city and I didn't know where to go. So I found hospital. We drove to the hospital, and that really started this 8-month odyssey into what happened and what kept happening throughout the pregnancy. So luckily, my baby was born in July, totally healthy. This original brain crash happened in March. But November of that year, they called me back into the hospital. They had done all of these different assessments. I had seen dozens of doctors. And they sat me down, and all my scans were up on the wall, and all my lab work was on the table. And I was terrified. And I just sat there, still kind of like baby brain. I didn't really know what was going on. And I sat there and listened to them tell me that they didn't know what it was, but they knew it was going to kill me. And they gave me 5 years to live.
Yeah.
And at first I started to argue with them, but the data was on their side. What I had was something that they could measure, and they knew other people who had parts of the things I had, and they said, this is what it is for them. So go home, love your children, put yourself, in a good space mentally to be there for them while you can, and put your affairs in order. And that really set off this, kind of collapse into despair, right? Like people talk about the dark night of the soul. It just went on for about 3 years. I had circled the date on the calendar, November 17th, 2011 was the day I was going to die. And everything was kind of falling down into this darker and darker pit. And at some point, I just wasn't a great mom. I wasn't the mom I wished I could be.
Yeah.
I was angry at everybody. I would be upset if my kids fought together, if they had sibling fights, because I just thought, you only have each other. Stop fighting. Don't you know? I need you to be in a good relationship with each other, because you're going to support each other through this very sad thing. Of course, they're preschoolers. They don't know what they don't know what I'm talking about, and why, I want them to stop fighting over the toys. It was a really, really, really hard time. And then one day somebody came to my house, and she was just, in all her loving kindness, said, "You know what, Leanne, after you're gone, I'll take care of the kids. Like, I'll help raise the kids." And I was thinking, no, 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 no. This is not how this is supposed to work. I'm raising my children. I want to raise them. I am their mother. And I threw out my basket of drugs, right? All of the medications, the tablets, the injections, everything. I just threw it all away, and I went for a walk in my neighborhood. And I live at the bottom of this very big hill. And so I'm huffing it up the hill, and I'm puffing it up the hill, and I'm yelling into the sky. And I'm sure my neighbors thought I was completely crazy. And I was just like, this is not how it ends. Like, this is not why you sent me 3 children, is so that somebody else would raise them. Like, these doctors don't even know what I have. They don't even have a name for it. How do they know it's going to kill me? And I just decided, I'm going to live. I'm going to live. Screw everything. I am going to get well. And that really just grounded me into this space of wellness. And I realized before, I was not treating myself well. I was not living well. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't sleeping well. It all just was like this house of cards. And so one of the gifts, this brain condition gave me many gifts, but one of them was to get very clear on what wellness really means. And as much as we want to feel great about going on a retreat or having a nice vacation or getting a luscious massage, that isn't actually the wellness that heals our body, that heals our soul, or, heals our traumas and our scars and things like that. So I just became very interested in that piece of wellness. And what does it mean for me to heal this degenerative brain condition? What does it mean to live past my 5-year expiration date?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I did was, I wanted to make it very clear for my kids that I was going to be sad some days, right? I was going to be angry some days, and that was okay, because I just felt like there was this general feeling in the world that we couldn't be angry, or we shouldn't be sad, or we shouldn't have these big, deep, dark emotions, right? That we need to be happy and find the silver lining and be positive, which is all great, but not at the expense of the realness of some of the tragic, horrific things that our bodies and our minds and our emotions can give us, right? Like, our bodies can suffer, our minds can suffer. And if the pandemic has shown us anything, we all, have a capacity for feeling very deep, dark feelings, right?
Yeah.
And so I created this thing. And it really feels like it was a gift from the universe, from God, from some kind of source energy. It came through me in a moment. It was just this fire hose idea of understanding the emotional spectrum. And I consider myself an emotionally intelligent person, but this even took it further than that. And so the 5 seasons was really this opportunity to understand the full spectrum of our emotions, looking at the way the world is and what nature has as her full spectrum of her beauty. And so winter in my world became the darkness, right? The angry, harsh, bitter, isolating times, the times I just wanted to shut everyone away, the times I felt sorry for myself, the times I was in pain. That was winter. And to leave winter, I had to commit to doing the work of spring cleaning. I had to dig into the dirt and pull out the weeds and get rid of all the debris that fell in winter. And I had to clear space to plant the things I wanted.
Yeah, makes sense.
And we do this kind of work because summer is the best it can be. It is growing, blooming, blossoming, flourishing, sunshiny, strong, gorgeous, happy times, right? We know what that feels like. So we're willing to do the work in spring because of the promise of summer. And then what happens in nature? I live in the Pacific Northwest of the US. So what happens here, you know, among many places in the Northern Hemisphere is in the fall, there's less sunlight. The temperatures are starting to cool. There's a chill in the air and something is changing. And you might not notice it all at once, right? You don't notice the subtle little changes, but all of a sudden you'll get this chill and think, whoa, summer's over. Right? And that's the same thing in our world. Like maybe it's a harsh word. Maybe I barked at my children, or maybe I was angry at somebody when I was driving, or, you know, maybe somebody just said something a little bit casual, but I took it so personally. That's fall, right? That's the signal that something is out of flow, out of the summer flow. Yeah. And we're heading back to winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a warning for sure. And then the fifth season is one I created. It doesn't exist in the world, but I felt like there was something missing as I used the 4 seasons to explain Mummy's emotional scale to my kids. And it really was the point at which I had to decide how I wanted to be. And I call it the crossroads. And the crossroads to me is a time in which you stand at this space, you take a breath, and you decide, am I going down the path to winter? Am I going to yell at my kids? Am I going to tell myself that I'm stupid because I made a mistake? Am I going to feel like a failure? Am I going down that path? Or am I going to stand here and choose summer, which looks like forgiveness or apologizing? It might be compassion or grace. It might be listening and asking questions, right? So the path to summer is really, what can I decide right here to take me back to the place I want to be? And for me, every moment I thought, what if this is the headache that takes me down? What if this is the pain that leads to the stroke that kills me? Do I want to be standing here choosing winter when that could literally be my last choice?
Yeah.
No. So Jody, I would choose summer. As often as I could, every chance I got, I chose summer. And that means there was a lot less fighting. There was a lot less conflict and chaos in my family, in my life. But there was also a lot less self-loathing, right? There was a lot more love. There was a lot more acceptance and grace. And I just felt like the path to wellness was really designed for the 5 seasons, right? It really was designed for me to walk through all the seasons and acknowledge everything, accept all of my feelings, but choose my behavior. Yeah. And I think that's the place to which we have the most power, is the remembering at every moment we can choose.
Yes.
You know, we can choose everything, and that is a game changer.
What an inspirational story. And there's just so much in that. So I love how you've used the seasons for processing, and it's like you're going back to nature, back to source, which really feels organic and it feels natural to look at the seasons that way, because our emotions do change with the seasons. So it's just for children, but even for adults, I really love easy, right? I love fun and easy.
Absolutely.
So that's a really easy analogy for people to then take on. And for those listening, if you've got your journals, I want you to be madly taking notes about this. So it makes it simple for you in those moments. And I love the 5th season because that's choice, right? Yes. And so, you know, and fall is around awareness.
Yes.
You know, so in fall, we become aware. So we've done a clean out, we've gone to summer, and then we come back and we're at this new level. So at the new level, we become aware of other things that need to shift in us. And so, you know, that's fall, when we become aware of these little things that are niggling at us again. And then the 5th season is really making a choice of, like I like to say, visit the house of anger, but don't live there, right?
Yeah.
So go in, visit, have a look around,
Mhm.
admire it, and then walk out the door. So it really helps you in those moments to make those decisions of how you want to live. And that really feels like you in charge, right? Rather
Yes.
than sometimes people feel like the emotions are in charge and there's nothing that we can do about it. And which
Mhm.
is part of a lot of work that I do too. So
Yes.
helping people understand that, no, yes, you are totally in charge of all of that. So I love the fifth season, because especially going into winter, when this is the dark time, when we feel like it has a power over us,
Yes.
right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, it's such a
Yeah.
simple path for people to
Uh-huh.
take. And the story of, as you was telling the story of, getting that diagnosis and having small children, I was just like, oh my God, how did you? And when you first fell, I might have missed it, but your husband wasn't there at the time because you just moved. So
Yep.
you were face down and with just the kids sleeping.
Yeah.
So no one around. It must have been
Yeah.
so frightening. And being able to master yourself up to get up and go to the hospital, not knowing where you were, not
Yeah.
knowing how to get to the hospital,
Yeah.
all those things on top of, and getting this diagnosis. And then how do you tell your husband, and how do you tell your children, and
Yeah.
going through all of that, and then also going through that dark time. And interesting, the trigger from that lady saying, oh, I'll look after your children.
Yeah.
Do you think it was like a motherly kind of an instinct then, that snapped into place, or was it
Yeah.
something that maybe, I don't know, you tell a story.
Yeah, no, that's, I think about that a lot, right? Because I really feel that was one of the most pivotal moments, probably of my life, right? Where I had to decide what the outcome was going to be. And I think for most of my life, and I know I talk to a lot of people, we tend to feel like things happen to us,
Yes.
right? So my boss makes decisions for me, or my husband makes decisions for our family, or, my parents were a certain way, so I am a certain way because of them. Like, I
Yeah.
don't have choice. I am powerless against all of these forces in my life. And it really was one of those moments where I thought, I'm sorry, one second. I'm actually going to make a totally different decision. Can I make a different decision? And I was testing it. And I think that was me huffing up the hill, was just, if a lightning bolt came and struck me down, I would have known that I shouldn't have made a different decision. But it was really one of the only times I can remember that I took that much force into deciding the path I wanted to take.
Yeah.
And, I had been haunted by the number 5. So they gave me 5 years to live. But Jody, you have to remember, every time I went to the grocery store and my bill was $50, or I went to the gas station and gas was $3.55, or I was driving on the highway and it was 55 miles an hour, it felt like the universe was laughing at me,
Yeah.
right? Like, Leanne, you're running out of time. You're running out of time. Like, 2011 is coming. And
Yeah.
I was a nervous wreck. And I was so uptight about dying that I forgot that I had the power to live. Like, it was just one of these very surreal moments. I know the person who said it to me said it from a place of love, right? I get that. But I really think it was the spark that lit the flame,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I'm a redhead. I just thought, no, I am not going quietly into this dark night. That is not my path.
Yeah.
That is not what I have gone through everything in my life to now give up.
Yeah.
Right? I finally have, the life that I've always wanted, and I'm going to die in it. No, 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 no. You're going to have to take me kicking and screaming. And so that feisty part of me, which had gotten quiet, right? I had 3 children. I was exhausted. I was in a new country, far from family, and I was sick. So I was taking injections. I was taking tablets. I was like a zombie most days. I couldn't remember how to turn on my stove. I didn't remember how to make toast. Like, I was a neurological mess, but I knew enough somewhere inside that I could fight for something different. And I think that sometimes is all we need. This woman did not come and say, I'm going to change Leanne's life. right?
Yeah.
It was a casual remark from a casual person, and it was just the spark I need, right? So if you have your journals, I mean, I want you to think back into your life. When was a time that you had a spark,
Mm.
right? And where did that come from? Because sometimes we need to remember that, oh yeah, that was a moment that my life totally changed, right? That was a moment I chose myself. That was a moment that I said, screw it, I'm wearing the bikini to the beach, right? Or I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm booking the trip, or I'm going to go on that blind date, whatever it is, right? There are moments that like are just those pivotal moments. And if we don't write them down, we don't remember that we have that spirit in us
Mm.
to fight for a better life, right? We think I can't overcome my genes, right? I have the genes of my parents, or, I have this, I didn't go to college, so I don't have an advanced degree like other people. We have thousands of stories that we build around our life. But if you have that spark, you can kind of burn some of those stories down,
Yeah,
right?
I
Because
like
you can
that.
say, oh, I didn't need a college degree when I decided to get that, when I decided to ask for that promotion or go for that job, or, do this brave thing in my life. I just did it because I'm brave. There's a part of me that is brave, and I will nurture her and make her well and strong so she can be brave more often.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I even love the spark that ignites the fire and burn those
Yeah.
no's, right? All those no's we tell ourselves. So if
Yeah.
we've got somebody listening, right, and they they really want to make a change, they really want to supercharge their energy. Maybe they want to kickstart that fire to lose weight, or just for overall wellness. What
Mhm.
would you suggest they do? What would be kind of like a strategy that you would say to them?
Yeah. I think the one thing, Jody, that got me back on track every time that I felt like I was slipping, I designed a wheel. And, it will be part of the PDF that you can sign up for, but it's a wellness wheel. And I really noticed a couple of things about myself in this road to healing. And that would be if I was sad or angry or frustrated, or I was feeling hurt or maybe scared, I had coping mechanisms that had served me my whole life. So perhaps it was baking something sweet, right? So then all of a sudden we had cookies and muffins all the time. Or maybe I would go out shopping, or maybe, some of the things that I did to make myself feel better weren't necessarily the better things for my body,
Mm.
right? They weren't the healthier things for me personally to get strong, because of course I wanted wellness. And so I had to start looking at the things that I was doing, and I recognized that some of the patterns that I had were behaviors to kind of protect myself, right? Or they were put in place as, old memories. Maybe I was baking with my grandmother, and so somewhere inside I remembered a happy time in that activity.
Yeah.
And so I really needed to deconstruct my wellness, and I needed to get very clear on what was missing in my life that I was trying to fix with this pattern or behavior, right? So was I really sad, or was I lonely? Right. And I just hadn't been around grownups because I have 3 young children at home in a foreign country, and I hadn't met any neighbors, right? Like, was it that I had not really been moving my body, and I was just physically, kind of stuck on the floor playing with dolls and, coloring pictures, but I wasn't running or doing big activity to get my heart pumping? Maybe I was just intellectually stunted, like I hadn't read a good book, or I hadn't had a stimulating conversation with somebody, because it was
Yeah.
just, all the cartoons and all the kid things around me. So I created this wheel because I wanted to be very honest with myself. And I think sometimes it's easy not to be honest with ourselves. But when we get really honest, we can say, you know what? I'm I'm really bored. And that's why I'm doing this thing. That's why I'm sitting with, a bag of popcorn and watching Netflix for 4 hours. Or I haven't been outside in nature in 2 weeks. And there's something sad in me, right? But if I just take a walk, if I acknowledge the fact that I miss being in nature, I miss seeing the sky, I miss, hearing the trees rustle. I miss hearing the water at a lake lap up against the rocks, right? If I'm honest, then I can give myself that piece of wellness that I really am craving, which I'm not going to find in the bottom of, a box of cookies,
Yeah.
right? So I had to
And
be
that's why
honest
we
with
keep looking
myself.
for the cookies, right? Because we feel
do.
like the box of cookies is where the happiness is. And because we're not in awareness of why we're doing that, we'll keep going for the cookies and keep looking and searching for that answer. And it's never in the cookies. And when we stop, like you say, and go to honesty, then we really discover what it is that we need in this moment. And when we give ourselves that, when we don't ignore our inner child, right? And we give ourselves that, we don't need the cookies because we're feeding our souls what it needs. Yeah.
I had very unhealthy coping mechanisms in my life. I very much, did those kinds of things. So the cookies were my thing. I found love in it. I found excitement in it. I found pleasure in it. And then it was gone as soon as the cookie was consumed,
Yeah.
So I thought, this cannot possibly be my path to summer. What do I really need?
Yeah.
What do I really need? I need to get my bills in order. Like, I need to make sure that my bills are paid and that we're okay financially, right? So sometimes wellness is some of those kinds of practical things.
Yeah.
Sometimes wellness is, I miss dancing. I miss friends. I miss parties under the moonlight. I miss, walks by the lake. I miss my family picnics, right? I miss these things that I left behind when I left my country.
Yeah.
So you have to recreate them, right? You have to decide, I will find that here. I will build this here. I will create new rituals in my new life.
Yeah.
And it's hard, right? It's hard to call someone up and say, hey, would you like to walk around, the park with me? Would you like to, go to this thing? Do you want to go to this glass blowing class? Or do you want to, come and have a potluck? It's hard to put yourself out there, but if you're craving social connection, you need social connection, right? If you're craving intellectual stimulation, you need to invest in your mind, right? So once you identify, so in my wheel, I had 12 categories. Once I knew what I needed, I wasn't doing all this other stuff that didn't work.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I am spiritually depleted. So I am going to go sit in nature. I'm going to journal. I'm going to bring books of inspiration. I'm going to pray. I'm going to do things that build me spiritually and my place in this world. That's just as valid as going out for a jog, right? Because all parts of wellness fit together in this beautiful wheel, and the wheel rolls along, right? And so we need all of those spokes to make sure the wheel keeps moving smoothly.
I love that.
So,
I love your analogies because I'm a hypnotherapist, right? So I use a lot of analogies in hypnosis because the mind loves them. So I'm sitting here going, oh, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that one. Oh, I love that. I'm going to use that. So
fantastic.
For people, from what I'm hearing is when you want to make that change and create that spark, I guess, to really supercharge whatever it is that you want to do, it starts with that awareness and, awareness in all different areas of your life and being truthful with yourself. So can you give us an example? Your example was such a really strong example of how this process works, but can you give us another example, maybe a client that, they've got a similar journey where they started, they use this method and what their outcome was, that just so we can put ourselves in different scenarios, so we can
of course
with that.
Yeah, of course. I see this a lot. So I have this wellness wheel, which I designed for myself. It didn't occur to me that other people might benefit from it. But as I've been doing more and more work in the world, it has become one of the fundamental tools that I use with people. And what often happens with people is they are stuck in the routine and habit of their life. And it's only when they see this scale, right? So on top of the wellness wheel, there's a rating, like there's a chart, and you actually fill it out. And so you will have to be honest when you say, how am I feeling today physically? How am I feeling emotionally? How am I feeling energetically? You know, how am I feeling in my job, with my finances? How am I feeling with my friends? So once you take this scale, you can really see what are the highs and the lows. And what I see a lot of with clients is they will come to me and say, you know, I know you're not a weight loss coach, or I know you're not, you know, this kind of person, but I really want support in my life. So can you help me with my life? And I'm like, of course, let's work through some of your issues. And it turns out that they, you know, might be training for a marathon, or they might be working really hard at tracking all of their food, or they might be doing a lot of really great healthy type activities and behaviors, and it's just not really impacting their life. And it often is one of these like really sneaky little things, you know, so it could be unresolved traumas, and they really need to go deeper with a therapist into, you know, a more deeper healing modality. But what I tend to see more often is people are in jobs that they are very unhappy doing.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got people who are very set in, well, my dad was an accountant, so I need to be an accountant. Meanwhile, their soul is crying out to be, you know, a musician, or to be a creative in some way, you know, do some kind of graphic design. But they're just very, very, you know, tunnel visioned into the path that they're expected to take, or the path they think will make their parents or their spouse or their colleagues happy. And once we start unpacking some of those emotional ties and really just say, if you had all opportunities in front of you, if you had every choice, what choice would you make? Right? If money wasn't an object, if time wasn't an object, if your responsibilities were not on the table, what would be your, you know, not your dream life in terms of like that perfect day with millions and millions in front of you, right? But just what is your ideal day?
Yeah.
But the body you have, for the, you know, for the mind you have, for the soul you have, what would be just so summary for you?
Yeah.
Almost always they're in the wrong job for them, right? Almost always they're in the wrong job. So they will say, I want, you know, freedom to create. I want to be my own boss. I want, you know, to set my own hours. I want to raise my kids and be professionally fulfilled in some way. Like I want to have a side hustle that pays my bills, but I want to be there for my kids. Or I want to travel the world. I don't want 2 weeks vacation a year, right? In the US, we have a very small amount of vacation time granted to people who, you know, work for corporations. So, you know, especially with the world being as it is, they're like, why is it everyone in Europe gets 6 weeks and we get 10 days? You know, why is that? I want freedom, right? So they crave this kind of thing. And it really is in that space of honesty where we say, you know what, your occupation is kind of poisoning the well, right?
Yeah.
Like if you think of your whole body as the well, what you're doing for work is soul sucking, and it's draining you, and it's exhausting you, and it's hurting you. It's
Yeah.
hurting your intuition, right? It's hurting your creativity. It's hurting your soul that's crying out for a different kind of life. How can we still help you pay your bills, right? Because we live in the real world. We don't live in fantasy land. We all have bills to pay.
Yeah.
So most of my case studies will be, how do we take people who are working in jobs that are just really crushing them and put them in places of more freedom, more ownership, more agency? Maybe that's entrepreneurship. Maybe that's a freelancing kind of, you know, scenario. Maybe that's contract work.
Yeah.
But it really is just opening somebody's eyes to the possibility that life exists as we want it to exist, right? And we have to work the spring cleaning, right? You have to do the work to get where you want to go. And so when you do the work, you can enjoy a true summer experience, right? Where you are feeling full and happy. Does that mean that winter is never going to come?
Yeah.
Of course not, right? Of course not. Winter will always come. The storms will always come.
Yeah.
But when you are honest with yourself and you know what you need to be happy and fulfilled, then you will do the work in spring to get back to summer every time a storm comes your way. I didn't want to get sick. I don't want to have a degenerative brain condition.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want some of the things that happened to me to have happened. And yet I choose summer every day. Right.
Yeah.
And so even though I'm not feeling well, even though, you know, my symptoms might be more pronounced on one day, I'm like, I can't do everything, but I can do something. Right.
Yeah.
So what's the one thing I'm going to do today? What do I have the energy for? What do I have the commitment to do?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the very smallest of things, but at the end of the day, I'm like, good job, Leanne. Good
Yeah.
job. You did it. Like, you honored you.
Yeah.
And that is really what we're here to express ourselves the best we can. And
Yeah.
it won't, every day won't be the best and the biggest and the brightest, but nobody runs 100% all the time, right? Every car needs gasoline and an oil change. So like, just being honest with our needs and honoring ourselves on our journey helps keep that spark alive.
Yeah.
So
And I'm super curious. So, excuse me, the clients that, you're finding that are in the wrong job, and that, so they've come to you because they want to make a change in their life, and they obviously don't know where to start. So then you do the wheel of sorry, it was the wheel of
it's
life,
just a
wasn't it?
wellness wheel.
A
Yeah.
wellness wheel. Sorry, the wellness wheel. You do the wellness wheel with them and helps them discover, what it is that they're really yearning for in the wellness wheel, what it is that they're really looking for. And so you're finding a lot of them, they're in the wrong job, for example. So then once you do that, and then they discover they're in the wrong job. Can you give us an example of a client? So they've discovered that, and then they've gone on and changed their job. And what was their life like once they did this process?
Right. Once they decided, you know, they stood at that crossroads, and they just, some people don't, right? Like, I'm going to be honest, some people stay in that job
Yeah.
and they just do. And that's totally there. You know, there's no judgment please, by all means, the
Yeah.
people who want to
Yeah. We
change.
just look for one example.
Totally.
Yeah.
So for the people who change, everything feels like it changes for them, right? Because once you kind of twist the kaleidoscope, the picture will never look the same, even if you just turn two little beads. So their bodies change, right? Their outlook changes. So mentally, they're in a better place. They are not, dragging around all of these heavy burdens in their mind. They actually feel clear and inspired, and they're excited to get up every day. If they're in a relationship, that improves. And if they're not in a relationship, they actually attract love,
Yeah.
because the energy that they give off is dynamic and vibrant.
Yeah.
If they have children, their relationship gets better. So there's less conflict and, kind of commotion in the relationship. And it really is based more on joy and pleasure and shared experiences.
So it
Their
feels like
body changes.
once they get to that level of awareness, it really, maybe, first off, they discovered that they didn't like their job, and some stay, but maybe there's another area of their life that becomes more important than the job that they're doing, that they end up working on. And I guess people change when they're ready as well. So what I'm hearing is, once you get through to this awareness, doing the wellness wheel, it's kind of like a roadmap, right, of things that you really want. And so then you go off and do the work. And when you do the work, it ripples out everywhere in your life.
It
So
does.
if we look at, say, for the people that are listening right now, and get your journals ready for this answer, what would be the one thing, if we don't know where to start, or how to get going, but we know we want things to be different, what would be that one thing that you would say to them where to start? That one piece of advice that will start them on that journey?
Mm-hmm.
What would you
I mean, I think I would ask them, like, the very first question that I ask people is, what do you want? What do you really want? Because people say, I want to be happy. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Right? I want to be thin. What does that look like? I want to be healthy. What does that look like? What do you really want for yourself?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I think until we know what we want, we don't know how to map our way to get there. So I'm a map maker, right? I find people where they are, but as soon as they tell me where they want to go, map's done. I'm like, yes, this is it. This is the route we can take. This is the fastest. This is the beautiful scenic route. Like, which way do you want to go?
I love that.
But they have to know where they want to go, because happy and healthy just are not definable, right? Because how do you know if you ever get there?
Yeah.
So it's just getting super clear on what really, really lives inside of you that wants to be expressed.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes people are like, I just want to be happy. And you push and you nudge and you ask more questions. And it's like, I want to be a mom. And you're like, yeah, you wouldn't have thought that when you hear happy, right? But it's just like peeling away the layers of the things that we want to say to get to the things that we need to say, that we need to actualize. So I don't have all the time in the world. None of us really do. But the faster you can get honest with where you are and what you want, the faster you can map your way to get there, right? So if you were to do one thing, it's what do you really want?
Yeah.
And then how can you track your way there, right? What are the milestones along the way? And what resources do you have at your disposal? If you look around your life, you probably have everything you need within one phone call or one click.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Right?
It's interesting that you unconsciously collect those things, that you really want, and the things that unconsciously maybe, or, you have some awareness of what that is. Law of attraction, you start collecting that, but you probably don't see it when you've got all these other distractions like the cookies, right? So when you're ready to see it, and when you do this mapping, I think that's a way of really seeing what it is that you want and deeply connecting with it. So I think clarity was what I heard in that, and getting really clear on what it is that you want. And, what does happiness mean to you? What does wellness mean to you? What does weight loss mean to you? So, and it means something different to everyone. And I think sometimes also as well, we look at, there's a lot of stock standards, I call them, where I think a lot of society say, I want to be happy, I want to be healthy, and I want to be well. And so it's kind of like a repeated mantra. And so, all right, what does that really mean to you? And is that something that you really want? Right. How urgent is it as well is another thing. Yeah. So there's just so much in what you've given to us today. And you've actually got a special gift for us, and I think you alluded to it a little bit before, but I want you to tell the audience what it is that you're going to give to them today.
Yeah, I really want everyone to have their own wellness wheel. I want it to be part of your health, wealth, and wellness package, right? So that when you wake up, you really can assess where you are, right? Because once you know where you are, and we've already decided where you want to go, then you know what to focus on. If you're low in certain categories, that's where you focus, right? If those are the things that will take you where you want to go. So I have a PDF, and it has the wellness wheel with all the categories, and then it has a chart, and you can just map where you are. And if you put 10s across the whole thing, I want you to message me, because I am going to challenge you on that. Nobody is 10s across all categories all the time. There are areas, and that is natural, right? There are times when we're lower in some areas. Sometimes that can be low for a little bit, and you're like, you know what, I'm actually okay with that being low because my focus is over here. Yeah. But if you're finding it to be like a chronic low, we're like, we've got to pay attention, because again, the wheel does not spin if half of it is collapsed in. Yeah. So if you're financially stressed, or
going along.
Exactly, right? Or if you don't have, you're not spending time with your friends and, having a social life because you're so busy building your career, there are costs to those decisions. Yeah. And the cost is to your wellness. So once you understand what the cost is, you're like, you know what, actually for the next 6 weeks, I'm willing to pay that price. I'm taking this course. I will do this work at the sacrifice of, friends and family. But if it's chronic and it goes on and on, you're hiding, right? Like you're protecting yourself from the fullness of your life. And we have to dive into why that is. So
Yeah.
this is really just like, let's take a quick temperature and see where you are across the different categories of your wellness, because that is how you start to make those big decisions, those honest, courageous decisions to move your life forward.
Yeah, what a generous, that's very, very generous of you to offer that to us. And I think that's a really great place for us to start, is doing this wellness wheel. And as you were talking about it earlier, I'm like, oh, I just want to do that myself. So,
Yes.
get your promise jars out, write a promise that you're going to download this wellness wheel, and you are going to fill it out today, why it's fresh, why you've got Leanne's story in your mind, such a powerful story. Download that wellness wheel and get to work.
Yes.
So I want to thank you so much for coming today and, sharing yourself with us. I feel really blessed for you to give us your time. And, it's a reminder that time is so precious. And the free gift that you're giving us as well, it's, if we can do that today, it's really going to show us the path, right? And a map of where we want to get to. So thanks again for being here today. Thank you for giving us your time. And if anyone's watching this on Facebook or YouTube and you don't see the link, you will need to register if you haven't already. If you are registered on the email, you'll see the link to this page where this interview is showing, and then the link to that wellness wheel is on there. So do make sure that you are registered. So thanks again for being here, Leanne.
Thank you for
I
having
loved
me.
this session, and I can't wait to go and do the wellness wheel.
Awesome. Thank you, Jody.
Bye.